I went into my office and I found this envelope that had been pushed underneath my door. I was very curious yet cautious. You see, a number of years ago, I was a pastor in Arcadia, Wisconsin, and there the Catholic Church decided to merge the Polish church and the German church, two Catholic churches together, and it didn't go well. And in fact, the priest was receiving hate mail. And he did something that I thought was rather funny at the time. He said, "I've received hate mail, anonymous hate mail, and what we're going to do is we're going to put it in a safe, and if anything happens to the church building, I'm sure the police are going to want to check this for fingerprints." Anyway, so very cautious about getting mail, especially anonymous. I've had experience of my own where people make anonymous accusations, and sometimes I've read them, and they're unsubstantiated, have no idea whether these things are true, like this one man who was accused of doing things. And so then every time I'd see him, even coming up for communion, it would affect how I would treat him. So I decided whenever I get anonymous mail, I do not read it. If it's not signed on the bottom, I just throw it away. So it has no effect on me one way or another. So I was kind of curious about this, and especially curious because it looked like, you can kind of see, it's kind of wrinkled, and it looked like they had a hard time getting it into the envelope. It actually looked like it had teeth marks on it, and it was a little wet. So I was careful not to touch any of the wet part, but it wasn't anonymous. In fact, here's his picture on the screen. He is not the actor that played the part in Shrek. He is the person that played the part in Jesus' parade. Perhaps you've heard about Jesus being in a parade. Apparently, we'll just call him, he calls himself Donkey. He wants to tell his side of the story. He writes, "I hope Mel Gibson hears about my adventure with Jesus and wants to do a movie about me." He even has a title. He calls it "The Passion of a Donkey." I have to warn you, as we read Donkey's account here, with anything else, you have to consider the source, and you have to consider the author's intention. So Donkey, he writes, "One day," next screen, "one day I was standing alongside the market. My master hadn't worked that day, which meant I didn't work. It was a holiday for me. But then a couple of strangers came and stood next to me. They were looking at me as if they were interested in me. I am a very interesting creature, but humans do not usually appreciate me. They muttered to themselves. One of them said, 'The rabbi said you will find a colt and untie it and bring it to me.' The other said, 'But what if someone sees us? We will be whipped as thieves.' Well, didn't you hear what he said? He said, 'Just tell them that the master has need of it.' Oh, and what if they say, 'What master?' and they grab us anyway? Don't you trust Jesus? Do you think he would give us a job that was impossible? Well, maybe it's just impossible for us. If Jesus trusts us, we're okay," said the first one. Second one said, I hope he isn't overestimating us." Then they started untying me, and I said, "Hey, what do you think you're doing? You're not my master. I'm on vacation." Well, I didn't actually say that. You see, I write a lot better than I talk. But I was thinking it really loud. And then I hear my master's voice. "Hey, what do you think you're doing with my colt?" Thank God for master. He'll save me. But the men say, The master has need of it. Yeah, right, and I'm Black Beauty. Then the weirdest thing happened. Master said, okay. Okay, are you crazy? You're buying this the master needs it stuff? Who's the dumb one anyway? So as you can imagine, I am in the dumps, pretty scared. Next screen. Master wasn't the best, but I knew what I had with him. Now what? They'll probably work me to death or eat me, or probably both. This is the worst time of my life, or so I thought. They brought me to this group of men. There were about 12 or 13 of them. They all surrounded this one guy in the middle. The group was surrounded by a crowd of people. The guy in the center was talking to the two who stole me. I heard them laughing and saying, "He just said, okay." "How did you know that, Jesus?" They called him Jesus. Then they pointed to me. This Jesus walked over to me, and he looked at me strange. He looked at me like he wanted to get on my back. Next screen. Nobody gets on my back. No one ever has, and no one ever will. What do I look like, a camel? But he looked into my eyes. He didn't say anything. And you won't believe this, but these words came into my mind. "Come to me, all you who are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Next screen. Then I looked at him and said in my mind, I know this sounds crazy, I said, "Get on. Get on my back. It would be my privilege." I know that sounds crazy, a donkey and a man speaking to each other in their minds. But it's the gospel truth, pardon the pun. They throw some blankets on my back, and he gets on. But I can hardly feel him. We start going into this big city. It was really strange. These people were throwing cloaks and blankets and branches, palm branches, on the ground in front of us. As we headed to the Mount of Olives, others joined these followers. They started praising him for healing, working miracles, raising some guy from the dead. I don't know why they're praising this guy, Jesus, for all this stuff. Why not just thank God for the work? They started to chant, "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord." Was Jesus supposed to be a king? I liked him, but is this what a king looks like? I never saw a king. They said, "Blessed is the King who comes in the name of the Lord. Peace in heaven and glory in the highest heaven." But not everybody was happy. The whole range of emotions were in this crowd. You could feel it. Some were happy, some were sad, some curious, and some were mad. Boy, that one group was really mad. They were yelling at Jesus too, but the crowd was yelling at him, shaking their fists. They were saying, "Silence the crowd." They scared me, but Jesus seemed unfazed. He simply said, "If these were quiet, the rocks would sing out." Talking rocks sounds strange to me, but I'm just a donkey. I'll tell you, I don't know why, but Jesus made me want to cry out for him. And cry I did. I didn't cry out loud. Like I said before, I write better. But I cried when, well, you know, Pastor. That day you call Palm Sunday, that can be very misleading. They cheer for him one day, and then, well, you know. Well, that's my story, and if you could pass it on to Mel, I would appreciate it. Oh, and by the way, tell your people not to miss coming to church on Thursday and Friday. If they just come on Palm Sunday today, then they just come Sunday, Easter Sunday, They won't fully understand the whole thing, like you and I do, Pastor. Okay, I don't understand everything, but I know pretty good for a donkey. Here he ends, and he says, God bless. Have a happy Holy Week. You know, I think that we can learn something from anybody or anything, even a donkey. Here's some of the things that I learned. Jesus can surprise us. Jesus can show up where we don't expect him to be, when we don't expect him to be. Jesus could get us to do things that we never would expect we would do, that we would actually say we would never do. Jesus can change our minds about things. And even though Jesus comes in love and peace and grace, not everyone will love him. And not everyone will love us. And last but not least, just because someone is showered with praise and given a parade doesn't mean it will last forever. Come to worship Thursday and Friday. You know, we live in a society that has many different religions. And sometimes I am really amazed at the commitment of some of these people to their religion. Maybe we can be inspired in our faith and our religious practice. Christmas is a big deal, obviously. But Thursday and Friday and Sunday are really as big as it gets for Christianity. Have a meaningful Holy Week. Amen.